Then, with a swing of his mighty sword, a blade of pure light cut through the Garland forces. Their war machines had all fallen silent before the Lalafel's mastery of swordplay and magic. Thus, with the Garland forces now defeated, the people of Alamigo knew, for the first time in 20 years, that they were once again free! The end.
That's not historically accurate.
Read one about the Wolves' Den Pier!
We are not doing PvP recruitment here.
What about a story of two lovers who can only be reunited on the autumn moon?
Oh, now see, there is a solid idea. Does anyone have a story like that?
Oh, me next. I've got one about a devilishly handsome and morally grey guy called Hades, who happens to fall for a silver-clad event planner, who happens to be called Morgana.
Okay, see, that's perfect. Morgana is up next then. I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I wasn't really expecting the cafe's first storytelling night to have such a high turnout, but this is great. Alright, Morgana, let's keep the storytelling going. Come on up. Welcome, dear friend. So what did you think of my cafe's very first story reading event? Given the positive reception so far, I am heavily considering making it a regular event. Though, just like with writing poetry, writing stories is just such a beautiful art, don't you think? Putting a quill to paper and letting your mind wander. Even in a world as fantastical as this one, people can make so many different kinds of stories, from epic war sagas to stories of romance found in the most unlikely of places. It's fascinating to see what people can come up with, don't you think? Here, take this drink and ponder for a while. I'm sure if you sat down and thought about it, you would be able to come up with at least 3 different story ideas in no more than half a bell. Speaking of which, I have a guest arriving soon. The very same person who inspired me to have a story night here at the cafe in the first place. You see, Moen is quite the prolific writer herself. Not only is she well known for her stories, but she also helps other writers with theirs too. She even holds a writing contest once a year in order to inspire others to write what's in their hearts. I'm sure once she gets here you will find what she says to be quite interesting. Just wait. And just like that, my wonderful guest is here. Moen, welcome to Coffee and Carbuncles.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. It is a bit late at night, so if either of us sounds sleepy, dear listener, that's why. Now, if we start snoring, that'll be a problem, but I think we can make it through this interview. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
I am willing to take on that challenge if my guest is.
I am willing.
All right. So, before we start, I've been informed that Moen is not actually your full name, and it's an abbreviation.
Yeah. So Moen comes from my original character's name in the game, although a lot of people over the years have come to know me in game as Silb. But my original character is Moen, and it's a sea wolf name, which means it's not actually pronounced Moen, but I just go with Moen because that's what most people say. My full character name is Moongai Moonwilfuin.
Now, for the sake of... Well, I'll be honest here. For the sake of myself, I'm just going to go with Moen for the interview. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah, that's just fine.
So, to start off, like I ask all my guests, where are you joining us from today? Where do you hail from?
I hail from the snowy north, Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. Yeah, snowy north indeed. Hopefully you're staying warm this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little chilly, but We just got dumped on today. Got all snowy and like snow globy, but it had been actually pretty warm the last couple weeks. So it's kind of a rude reminder that it is in fact still winter.
Yeah. I live in the Midwest, and we've been dealing with a little bit of that ourselves. We've had our nice days, and then every now and then winter's like, by the way, still here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we haven't forgotten, I promise.
Nope.
Now, it is a little late, so normally I would have like a really nice coffee, maybe some type of caffeinated tea for these interviews, but realistically, we're recording this a little later in the evening, and after this I plan to sleep, so for now I just have water. But what are you drinking while you're here with us?
I have 2 cans of Klarbrun, which probably no one who's not from Wisconsin, like anyone who's not from Wisconsin probably has never heard of it, but it's a brand of sparkling water that's just the best. And then I also have a giant bell jar full of, or ball jar, excuse me, full of electrolyte water, because it's really important to stay hydrated, right?
True. Now, I'm curious, that sparkling water, flavor to it? Specific fruit or anything?
Mm-hmm. Black cherry.
Oh, nice choice.
Yeah, it's good.
Nice. I'm a little jealous. like I said, I have plain water, so only slightly jealous.
My water is flavored blueberry, or no, blue raspberry. It's blue. It looks like antifreeze, but it tastes delicious.
On a side note, please don't drink antifreeze.
Please do not. This is not an antifreeze drinking challenge happening right now.
Oh gosh. Or ever.
Ever.
Oh goodness. I hope not. If anyone ever says coffee and carbuncles told me to go drink antifreeze, I will cry. I will cry and feel like a bad podcast host. Please do not. I could go into a long scientific explanation of why antifreeze kills you and how, but let's not. Let's just get on with a better topic, such as Moen's background and what she does for hobbies outside of 14, so we can get to know her better and move away from the topic of antifreeze.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm a kind of a just generalist with creative stuff. Professionally, I'm a creative director, so essentially that means that I have, at some point in my career, like tried every type of creative like craft that you can do, so that I know how to do all the things, and therefore I can know who to hire and then like how to communicate what we need to do with different types of creative people. So I mean, gosh, I mean, I hate to say my hobby is work, but I do love to work. I do love to work. I have 2 kids. As you know, most of you listening who are familiar with me probably know that I had a baby this last year, which is why the last challenge for 2025 was I didn't run it, actually. You guys ran it yourselves in little pockets, which was really awesome to see. But yeah, I'm a skilled illustrator, musician, writer, and my favorite hobby, if I'm gonna get some time to myself, like real time to myself outside of the house, is yard work. I love yard work so much.
Really?
Yes, I love it so much. I love it. I love getting so sweaty and gross and like just murdering weeds. Oh, it's the best. It's the best.
You do a lot of gardening?
Well, yes, but we just bought a house about a year and a half ago, and we inherited like a yard that's just full of the worst, most pernicious weeds that you could get in the country actually. A variety of them, so not even just one. Most of the yard are the weeds. So really all my gardening has just been weeding the last 2 years, basically. I have like really ambitious plans to convert my entire yard back into like native native gardens for pollinators, and I'm gonna like build little bat houses and possibly some like bee boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
A new house and a new kid around the same time. That must have been quite the change in your personal life. Wow. That's a lot going on at once. I mean, congratulations, obviously.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been great.
So I am curious though, given the background, given the hobbies you talked about, high school, theater kid or no?
Oh my gosh. I think I didn't get into theater until like the second semester of my senior year. It was like I've never tried this. I might as well do it before I'm done. I loved it so much, and I wished that I had gotten involved in theater much sooner. But no, I was not a theater kid. I was always in the art room, however. Always, always, always. I think that I was voted like, like the those high school yearbooks, most likely to succeed, most likely to have the best hair forever, etc. I was the like, I don't remember what it was. It was something about art. It was like probably most artistic or something like that. Just always in there. I took AP art, different types of art classes, even an animation class, like hand-drawn animation. And it was really fun.
That makes me curious, given that obviously we're going to talk about fan fiction writing later.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself really latching on to like your English and creative writing classes then?
Actually not really. Yes and no. If I encountered people that were because like, I hyper focus on certain things, right? And I'm not as interested in, or at least at that time, I was not as interested in like the standardized book regimen that they would require everyone to read. I was way more interested in delving in like the roleplay forums and creating my own AU Sailor Moon fanfic and getting people to roleplay with me in there instead. So I actually wasn't. I found like a lot of the curriculum for my school was like very basic, and I liked weirder stuff. I really like weird stuff.
I'll confess, I was pretty much the same way, but with Bleach.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I will never forget that for an art project in high school, the teacher was like, "All right, we're going to make digital art. You can make digital art of anything or anyone you want. Be as creative as you want." And so I made Ulquiorra from Bleach, and my teacher had absolutely no idea who it was, and my classmates had no idea who it was. And I was like, but he looks pretty, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Like I was like, a huge like Bjork stan when she was wearing the swan dress, and everyone was like, she's crazy and weird. I was like, she's perfect. She's a queen, actually. I was a goth kid, so I was like always in like my big black wide leg Jenko jeans, fishnets, green hair, like all the things. I was just strange and delightfully so, but also charismatic and could get along with anyone.
Oh man, where have you been like the other 3 episodes where I just talked about how much I love AFI? Oh goodness. But high school days aside.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I talk so much about things like high school is I'm just so curious when you hear about people's lives, seeing like point A to point B to point C, and how they take like fascinations and hobbies that they had when they were younger, and they sort of evolve them into careers and even more passionate hobbies as they get older. And just the evolution of it is one of the most fascinating things about doing interviews to me.
Yeah, absolutely. People are so interesting.
including my current guest. So, how did you come to the Final Fantasy franchise? At what point did you first encounter Final Fantasy?
Yeah, I mean the franchise as a whole, we had a PlayStation system when I was like kid, I guess. Middle school? I don't remember how old I was. But my first intro into Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy VII. I wasn't in all of the beautiful Nintendo era Final Fantasy games of the early days. I think that if I had a Nintendo system, I would have absolutely eaten those up much earlier. But like up until that point, I was like, oh, Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, Spyro the Dragon, like video games are fun. And then I'm like, oh, this game looks interesting, and I play Final Fantasy VII, and it just completely blew my mind. It was the first role-play game that I had played, and the first game where the story is like so deep and engaging and takes some dark turns. That is like a young person. I just hadn't really had a lot of experience with stories like that yet, and it was so good. It just blew my mind. So that was my intro.
To ask,
Mm-hmm.
since you said you were a goth kid,
Yes.
how much did you fangirl over Vincent?
I didn't.
Really?
Actually, no. I fangirled over Tifa and Yuffie. Vincent he's okay. He's okay.
Nice. I was just curious because around that time period, the goth kids I knew were also, some of them had played Final Fantasy VII, some of them hadn't, and oddly enough, it was primarily the ones that hadn't that actually fangirled over Vincent the hardest.
Interesting.
And at the time, well, I didn't think about it because, I mean, I was busy, fanning over my own stuff. But looking back on it now, it's interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite Final Fantasy game and character then?
There's so many to choose from.
I know, right? It's a hard question.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, Final Fantasy VII, the original, will always hold that special place in my heart for nostalgia value. I still have my multi-disc PlayStation set. But, I don't think I have a running system to ever pop it in and play it like on the disc experience anymore. But there's so many really excellent ones. I really got into Final Fantasy X as well. That one really, really spoke to me at the time, the age I was when it came out, things that were going on in my life. That storyline just really jived with me. And then it also became nostalgic because I was able to get my then boyfriend, now husband, back into video games through sitting him down and putting a controller in his hand and saying, play this, you'll like it. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, just play it. And he loved it. We named one of our cats Yuna, who has since passed. But yeah, she lived to be 20 years old. She's, that's great. So the Final Fantasy X franchise hold a really special place. I'm also like a huge fan of Freya, or Frey, excuse me. She's awesome. Giant bunny girl. Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Fran. I said the wrong name.
Yeah. Because Freya was the dragoon from 9.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yep. I got my little names mixed up there.
It happens, especially in this franchise.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy X is such a good game. I love it. I mean, mind you, I have a strong bias towards summoners, so already I'm on board with the game, but in general, I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
the summoning system is just like, I remember thinking it was so beautiful. Everything about it, the way it was incorporated into the story, and just like at the time, the graphics were so good,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I especially like the opening of 10. I mean, the music plus the way it just throws you into the story, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
Then how do you get from Final Fantasy 7 and 10 into Final Fantasy 14? Did you play because you were like, hey, this game looks good, or because you were already a Final Fantasy fan? What brings you to Eorzea?
Yeah, well, shortly after college, I had an actually required research project surrounding MMOs that I had to do for a client.
Really?
So I
Tell me about
got
that.
into. Oh, it was just a client who wanted to create a school at home platform that followed like guild community structure.
Huh.
Which was really interesting. This was like, well, like 15 years ago. So, predating Final Fantasy 14. I think my timelines are a little mixed up these days with, post-COVID world. But he wanted us to research World of Warcraft, and at the time, none of us had played World of Warcraft in the agency that I worked in. So I was like, yeah, I mean, heck, I've played roleplay games. I'll go in there and give it a shot. And I had this like experience. I started actually roleplaying in forums when I was like, I think 12 years old or something. Would tell everyone I was 16, of course, naturally. That's the move, right?
Yeah, of course.
I was not roleplaying anything inappropriate. That's just important to note. But yeah, so I had like already like years and years of experience role playing, but then like when I went to college age, I stopped doing that. So post college, I was like, well, I'll check out World of Warcraft. Sure, and I did, and it was cool. And I got completely like hooked though, and then I was just like always playing World of Warcraft then. And really getting into the roleplay community. That was the most interesting thing about it for me, was like people roleplay in a game. Like I didn't know they did that. I thought it was always forums or via email chain for people who are as old as I am. If anyone remembers roleplaying in email chains, I would be really curious to know how that worked out for you. But anyway, so I played World of Warcraft for years. Was in a pretty tight-knit community. I was a Draenei stan and played only Draenei exclusively. I love Draenei. And me and my friends, we all love Draenei, and we were like waiting for years for some more lore for the Draenei people. I think I started playing it around Cataclysm. And so it was like a long time, and then finally like Warlords of Draenor is coming, and we're like, oh my god, this is it, we're gonna get all the lore, it's gonna be amazing, we're gonna get to see Retribution and like the Draenei people finally like getting, their justice and all this stuff, and nope. It was a dirty genocide all over again, and that was a big, actually like really hurt my heart. So, I'm playing through, and I remember the moment I stopped playing World of Warcraft, like vividly. I'll probably never forget it. It's like this, it's in Warlords of Draenor. I'm going through, I'm not going to put any spoilers for people who haven't played it, but there's a point where you are standing in front of like a bunch of like bodies of Draenei people, and you have to burn them because the bad guys have come through and killed them all. And they're just a giant pile that's like as big as a house, or at least that's how I remember it. It might be smaller than that. And I just like stood there in game, and like I just actually like kind of blue screened. My brain blue screened and just stared at this. I'm like, I can't play content that's this mean anymore. I can't do it. I can't. I logged out and I never logged back in. And I was like really sad, actually. I was really sad for a little while. I think it was, I don't know how many months it was. I think it was a matter of months, not years. But I didn't play any MMOs. My friends in the MMO were like, "Hey, where'd you go?" Because literally, I just logged out and never logged back in. I didn't tell anyone. I just disappeared because I was too distraught. But they did. I think Discord existed. It was kind of early days of Discord, so they were able to message me still. And like, I can't go back. I'm sorry, everyone. And then I start hearing about. Oh, I mean, I kind of knew Final Fantasy had like an MMO. It was Final Fantasy 11, but I really wasn't connecting with the graphics. That's an important aspect for me. The visuals just weren't doing it, so I didn't really want to get into that. And then I was hearing about this relaunch of Final Fantasy 14, because apparently it had been around briefly and was a disaster, I guess. 1.0. That's what I hear. And I was like, oh, well, okay, sure, I'll try this. And it was like around Christmas time. And I created Moongeim, and immediately, like before I even created a character, I'm like, I mean, I'm gonna roleplay, but like I might as well do a little research and see what are the roleplay servers. And so I made her on Balmung, and yeah, and then I played for a little bit. It was like I just really connected with the game, and I was really delighted to find that the storyline was so much kinder. It wasn't like this never-ending war. I mean, it is World of Warcraft. It makes sense. But it wasn't a war of like, you having to choose one side and not being able to even talk to the other the other side of the player base, like Horde versus Alliance. I really hated that. Everyone, all of the players who were in this game could talk to each other. And there was like the gameplay itself was nice. The NPCs were just wonderful. It was such a completely different experience, and it reinvigorated me. And I ended up reaching out to some of my friends and saying, "Hey guys, I found a new game. Come try it with me." And then the rest is history.
I admit I don't know how I would have felt about that, or if we had something equivalent in 14. Like if they told me to burn a pile of Mikote or Lalafell, I don't think I'd be very happy about it either. I mean, I'm sure it was there for, the emotional impact and what have you of it, but I totally can see why that would really make you upset, especially if you're a role player and your character is that race and you're having to go burn, a pile of bodies of the same race as your character. I mean, just not only from a personal perspective, but especially from like an in-character roleplay perspective, talk about horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, It was like, as Drana, your characters are already traumatized by like however many hundreds of years of whatever, however long you decide to have their lives be. We don't like it just kind of backs you into this corner. It forces you into this corner as a role player of nope. Your only option is trauma roleplay, actually. I don't want that to be my only option. If I'm going to accept the canon and incorporate it into my roleplay, I would like some different options.
And that seems completely fair. So you joined 14. Is your husband playing with you? Is he a big gamer?
He's not, actually. No.
Oh.
So he has played with me a little bit here and there, but no, he's more of a I like to he likes to write poetry. He's not really a screens guy. For the most part, reads books, like paper books. I do too, but
Oh, I'm actually, so my desk is right next to one of my bookshelves. I've been recommended things like a Kindle, and I just can't. The feel of paper between your fingers and physically like moving the pages is just an irreplaceable experience for me.
Yeah, and the smell of books. I love the smell of books.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm sitting here staring at my bookshelf like as we're talking about this, just getting all like hard eyes at my book collection.
What's the book that's standing out to you the most right now as you look?
Well, funny enough, eye level from me, looking over at my bookshelves, is actually the shelf I devote to all of the Final Fantasy XIV art books.
Beautiful, yes.
So I am staring directly at the most recent art book, the Dawn Trail art book right now. So very appropriate for the interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
But tell me about your start in the game. I mean, now that you decided to play 14, now that you looked at roleplay and you got on Balmung, let's start with the basics. Like, what class did you pick and why?
You know what? I think my first class was actually Arcanist.
Good.
And
Best
I started with Summoner, and I don't think I leveled it very far. And then I was like, oh, well, this is amazing. I can also like try all of the classes without having to create a whole new character. So I tried a bunch of stuff. Then the next one I did was Dragoon, and I got pretty far with Dragoon, but I was absolutely a Lolgoon, 100%. So that wasn't always great. And then I was like, dang, you know what? I'm just gonna tank. So I went Warrior, and I haven't really looked back. So now I just main Warrior, but you know, let's remember that I'm actually a role player. So no, you know what? Actually, I'm pretty good. Pretty good. I'm a decent tank, even though I'm a role player.
Is that how you identify yourself? They're just like, hey, we need a tank, and you're like, I'm actually a role play main.
Kinda, but actually, yeah. Let's go with that.
I won't lie, I've done the same thing once or twice. People are like, so do you want to join us for this high-end raid? And I'm like, I hate to break it to you, like, I have in-game gear and I can do things, but I'm mostly here for like roleplay.
Yeah, like my ideal for raiding is going with friends, who like, yeah, we're probably going like for real, to be real, we're probably going because there's like a glam that we want, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
But like my ideal is we go in, nobody has looked at any of the mechanics. We don't know what we're getting into. And we're all in voice chat and we're just screaming and smashing buttons and laughing, and people are making wild mistakes, and it's hilarious. It's so fun. It's so fun. I don't do that with like pickup groups though. I'm respectful with pickup groups. I will look up the mechanics ahead of time, etc. But you know, just goofing with friends is a good time.
I'm going to be a little mean, and I hope you'll forgive me. You going, yeah, I have a good time just screaming and smashing buttons. I'm like, oh yeah, she's a warrior main.
Right? I can afford to scream and smash buttons. I'll probably still survive. Maybe that's why I'm a warrior. Oh.
Not like us refined summoner mains who, you know, let everyone else do the fighting for us.
Beautiful.
I have you on this episode because we're going to talk about fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's going to be the bulk of our conversation during part 2. But you talked earlier about being in high school writing Sailor Moon fan fiction.
Yeah.
Do you remember like when you first started writing fan fiction? Do you remember the first franchise you wrote about? Was it Sailor Moon?
I'm pretty sure it was Sailor Moon. I had been writing. I was a prolific writer as a child, so I had written I think a number of actually like little novellas of original content that were like, you know, about unicorns and like whatever, like, you know, 8-9-year-olds write about. I don't know. I don't remember most of them. But Yeah, like I think like the first fan fiction that I got into was Sailor Moon. And I have to clarify, I don't think that I was writing just straight up like fan fiction by myself. I think that the majority, if not all of my fan fiction was in the context of like collaborative writing or, what we refer to largely as role playing.
Role playing, you say?
Yes, role playing.
Huh, I know nothing about that. So I'm guessing then, like, was it you and your friends online, like you do role play and then sort of piece it together to make it more like a fan fiction novel type writing afterwards?
Not even. I mean, at that time, it was really just in the forums. But we would, there would be like chapters that we would create. Like we would establish different points in the story, and then so we all knew like where we were headed narratively. It was never like slice of life kind of stuff. Is always very focused and very story driven, and that's how my roleplay tends to be even today. Um, Although I haven't roleplayed much since I had my first kid 4 years ago. I've barely roleplayed since just because, woo, mom life. It really, really pulls at that free time that you used to have.
That's what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
So why, with all of the different hobbies and all the different things you've been drawn to throughout your life, what specifically grabs you about fan fiction writing? What do you get from doing creative writing?
It is so good for your brain to write. And I know I'm aware that there are arguments, there's different opinions about fan fiction that exists, including negative ones, like it's not real writing, or like, it's a cop out, build your own world, lazy bum, or whatever. Look, like when people are doing writing, and when they're writing from something that they already love, that is loading their system with so much serotonin. It is so good for your brain. It is so good for your body. I love neuroscience. And I will always, always, always be a cheerleader for anyone who wants to write fan fiction or things that other people think are cringe, whatever. Like, it's so good to write.
And in part 2 of this, we are going to dive right into that, into the good, the bad, and the cringe, as I like to say.
Yeah.
We are going to talk all about that. So I think that this is a really good place for us to take a break. And I think that we're going to take some time to go, to refill our drinks, do what we need to do, and then we will be right back for part 2 of the interview. So Moen and I will catch you in a bit.
Catch you a bit later.
Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with the wonderful Moen. Moen's here, I'm here, and you're here with us, dear listener. Here in part 2, we are going to dive right into fan fiction writing, why you should do it, the negative opinion of it, and even some of the things that people might consider a little cringe. Moen, I trust you're ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I'm going to dive right in. And this is a bit outside of how I usually do things. I actually have you on to talk about an event you made, FF14Write. But before that, I want to dive into talking about fanfiction writing in general. Now, I know it's common to jokingly say fanfic writing is cringe or bring up that one fanfic someone saw when they were in high school that was just a rare ship to them and they still remember it today. But in my opinion, fanfiction writing is actually a great thing, like we talked about in part one of the interview. In my opinion, I think fanfiction writing is a sign of actually a very healthy fandom. After all, you don't really get inspired to write about things that don't creatively grab you. What would you say in regards to that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. If you don't have a healthy fandom that's writing about what you do or really producing any creative about the story itself, and yeah, you might not have a lot of interest going on there. I think fan fiction is really important. Really, like if you want to take a step back, and I love to take steps back and look at the bigger picture. I care a lot about creative process in people's brain and what it takes to get from a beginner level to like an advanced level and whatever creative discipline you're interested in, whether that be art, music, writing, etc. Everybody has to start somewhere. And while I don't think that fan fiction is only for the starting point for writing, certainly it's not. There's been a lot of like published stories, like books, novels that got their start as a spin-off from a fan fiction. So they in and of themselves can be like the final form if you want it to be. Carefully, stepping around all of the legal barriers consciously so you don't get in trouble. But for a lot of people, fan fiction is the start. It's the beginning of the process. It's they may not have the time or the knowledge yet to know how to build their own world. So they're taking one that they love already so much and they're inserting themselves, they're building their own narrative within that world. And for a lot of people, that's the beginning of their writing journey. A lot of them don't necessarily know what they're doing right away. And that's okay. And it's important. And I'm going to always try to protect people who are in that spot.
A discussion that, in full disclosure, we had, I'd say about a week and a half ago before this interview, and that I've had with some friends in a roleplay Discord I'm in, is I feel like it's very easy to look at a fan fiction that you might consider the writing to be, let's say, subpar. Or you might consider the plot to not be great. But when you're looking at a piece of fan fiction, some people can say, oh, well, I can tell the author's age just by looking at it. But I don't feel that's necessarily true. I really feel that you have people that tend to judge fan fiction the way one might judge a released novel from like an acclaimed writer when you don't really know, one, the background of the person who's writing the fan fiction, what their writing level is, what their age is, but also you may be looking at it, comparing it to some type of published novel, and they might have just busted it out in like an hour to get an idea out of their head, even if you're not aware that that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that you have people that tend to judge fan fiction too harshly. And I think, at least to me, that feels like where a lot of this idea of cringe, a lot of this criticism comes from, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I hear people in the fan fiction community sometimes joke about WIPs, works in progress. We see in creative fields, like when an artist, someone who is skilled at drawing, they just throw out on their Twitter, or I'm sorry, Blue Sky, they just throw out on their Blue Sky account, like, hey, just, I had like 30 minutes, I just did this little WIP of an OC, here they are, and they just throw out this black and white sketch. People often respond really positively to that because they understand the concept of a work in progress, a WIP in the context of a visual art piece. Wow, it looks so good. Oh my gosh. Like the comments are great. The same principle applies to fan fiction or any form of writing. People can bang something out in an hour, and it could be a WIP, a work in progress. And they may put it out there in the same place. They may put it out there on Blue Sky or AO3, or whatever their platform of choice is, Tumblr. And people do not have the same reaction at all to seeing a work in progress for a written piece compared to an illustrated piece. And that's a dang shame. It's an awful shame. Because it makes people more afraid to put their writing out there. It really reinforces this idea that your writing has to be perfect in order to get it out there at all, or it's going to be torn apart. Works in progress are not valid to just toss out there. I just vehemently disagree with that. And that's like a foundational basis for the writing challenge that I run, actually.
Well, I also feel like one thing that's easily missed is we talk a lot as a culture, as a society, about how you need to protect your personal safety and sort of try your best to maintain a certain level of anonymity online. Don't talk about your age too much, don't talk about your location too much, stuff like that. And so someone might be looking at a fan fiction and thinking that the author is like 32 years old and has been writing for 20 years and what have you. But the author could easily be like 14 and not have much experience, but they're just doing the safe thing of not declaring at the start of their fan fiction, hey, by the way, I'm 14.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I feel like that's also something that needs to be kept in mind when we're being critical of writing online.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just don't really, in general, I'm not a fan of really seeing anybody tear anybody else down for putting their creative work out there, unless like there's there's always like legal concerns sometimes that come up that we won't really get into, but yeah, in general, people just can be a lot meaner than they really need to be. They're not taking a lot of considerations of the writer in mind.
Also, I feel as though, let's say that you have a piece of fan fiction and maybe it isn't that good, but also it's someone's like first or second fan fiction. If everything they're hit with, instead of constructive criticism, is primarily negative, you may have just stopped someone from making more fan fiction and thus being able to improve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a shame.
It's such a shame. And those negative comments, that negative feedback, it goes deeper than just affecting their fan fiction writing. They might not write at all anymore, even in like their personal stories. They may not try to build that world that they've been thinking about for 5 years. I think that it's a better idea to be gracious and considerate when commenting. You just don't know where people are at, and you don't know what their dreams are. Please don't crush people's dreams. Don't do it.
If you take anything from this episode, I am okay with that being the only thing that gets taken away from this episode. Don't crush dreams.
For real. Yes. Me too, actually.
That is beautiful, and I could not agree more. But I did say that in this we would talk about cringe, so we're going to dive into it. And I'm going to ask you, as someone who has done a lot of fan fiction writing. You hold a yearly fan fiction contest that we are going to talk all about in a bit. We are definitely getting back to that, I promise. I'm going to ask, just so that we can combat stereotypes and bad narratives, in your opinion, how much of fan fiction writing would you say is shameless self-inserts and breaking the personality of various characters just to fit the author's narrative? Dante's Inferno aside.
Oh man, I don't think some people are not going to like my answer at all.
I'm ready.
I don't care. Like yeah, sometimes people will shamelessly do self-inserts and shamelessly take the character, this like established character, and have them do whatever they want to fit their narrative. Like, their writing is for them. And I don't think that we should try to police it too hard. And I know that there's plenty of communities out there who really, really feel strongly that anytime you're writing fan fiction, it has to be lore compliant. It has to be, keeping every character exactly as they would be represented in the story. Don't change any of their decision making that would be out of character, etc. I understand that. Generally, when I write, that's like the style that I would lean toward, is, keeping in line with those things, because that's what's enjoyable for me. But I don't care to police people for doing the opposite, because that's what's enjoyable for them. And I would argue that some people, or some franchises, they break their own character. They break their own characters. We see it all the time in like TV writing, especially. We get like the first couple seasons. Oh, these characters are so great. They're so established. The world is built so well, so strongly. And then the last couple seasons, things start to get rushed. And then like, whoa, why did that character make that decision? That doesn't make any sense. Like, wait, I thought the world was going in this direction. There are all these clues, why is it different now? Even canonical writers of their own franchise will break their own characters and like change the direction of the narrative for like a new agenda if they need to. For what it's worth, like, we see it all the time. And because that happens, that is often a starting point for fan fiction. Fans who were like, oh, I saw all these seasons of Stranger Things, and there, all these great clues and Easter eggs and all this stuff, and like, wow, the ending is gonna be awesome. And they're not satisfied with the ending. They feel like the characters are broken. They feel like, wow, those clues are meaningless now. Like, was it all for nothing? So some people might decide to write their own version where they change the canon based on what their original understanding was, because it brings them joy. And I think if something brings you joy and you're not hurting anyone, please do it. Please do it. Yes, it's so good for your brain. It's so good for your body. It's so good for your mental health. Yes.
You know what? I love that answer. I really genuinely love that answer, because not only did you take my question and you're like, what if we go beyond a black and white answer on this? But you're also your conviction is there, and I love it. You're just like, you know what? I don't care. This is how I feel about writing. And I admire that passion.
Yeah. If you're not having fun, then what are you doing?
I agree. And so if you're a fan fiction writer and you're listening to this, you're going to understand this 100%. And if you've never written fan fiction before, here's something you need to understand. If you are writing fan fiction, you are doing it for you, unless you're doing it as part of a contest or a gift to someone, which I've written a few fan fictions as gifts to people. It happens.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
But I think Moen has a great point that if you're doing creative writing, it's most likely for you. It's most likely because it makes you happy. So do what makes you happy.
Do what makes you happy. Yes.
That is awesome. You know, actually, I want to revisit something you said earlier. When I asked about your start in fan fiction, you said it actually started as role playing, as very well planned out role play. So, leading up to this interview, I've joked a lot about a phrase that I like. Roleplay is just fan fiction writing in co-op mode. And Eric, who I had on the podcast back in January, says that really role-playing is just cooperative story writing. Do you tend to view fan fiction writing this way? Or do you tend to view roleplay this way? I mean, do you tend to view roleplay as just an offshoot of fan fiction writing?
I think it is fan fiction writing. By my definition, I would consider it fan fiction writing. I respect if people have different definitions. That's fine, as long as you're not being a jerk to somebody about their own definition and telling them they're wrong, because that's not nice. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think it's absolutely a valid form of fan fiction. It's you've got an established world that you didn't create, so right there is like a base definition for fan fiction. A lot of times you may have your own characters. Like, for most role players will role play their own original character, their own OC, rather than trying to role play an NPC, although I have seen people do that. And you have a story and you're writing it together. Whether it's a scene in a coffee shop or a tea shop or a pub, somebody's off in the forest on a hunting trip. Or maybe you're doing like what I tend to do, or would do when I was more involved in roleplay, is get my friends together and plan out these multi-chapter MSQ campaigns, and then go through those together very intentionally. There's all different ways to do it. It's all valid, and I think it's an aspect of fan fiction. It can be.
And if I can just briefly revisit something we talked about earlier, you talking about role plays taking place in things like a coffee shop, or maybe like a nice cabin in the woods, or somewhere sort of outside of the usual setting you might find an adventurer in, also makes me think about what we talked about with like the idea of having to keep a character the way they're presented and not changing their personality or switching up like how they might react to a situation. If you have a character that, say, has never been in a certain part of the world or never been in something like a cafe, I think then if they act differently, that's pretty understandable in roleplay or fan fiction writing, because if they're in a new environment, like for instance, let's say someone is role-playing as or writing Y'shtola, if they're suddenly transported to, I don't know, for sake of conversation, let's say like a Walmart or something, then they're going to act differently because they've never had that situation happen to them canonically, if that makes sense.
Okay, fam. I want to see the fanfic of Y'shtola stumbling into a Walmart. Please.
I am not going to be the one to write it. It might exist somewhere. It might exist after this interview, but it will not be me.
Please put it in the comments if you write that. I must see it. Okay. Anyway, continue, Nobu.
But that's what it makes me think of, is that's also kind of the beauty of fanfiction writing and roleplay, though, is you can take characters, you can take a narrative, and you can just take it wherever the heck you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should, because again, you're writing for you. I mean, in the context of role playing, I will say that there are social rules at play that you need to keep in mind. That's different than when you're writing a fan fiction alone, just by yourself. So they are different in that way. But, the people that you're playing with, if you're role playing, you want to make sure that you're playing with people that you enjoy and that you enjoy the story that you're putting together or the scene that you're putting together. Because if you don't, then hey, it's a big wide world of roleplay, especially these days. Find somewhere else where you're having fun, Have fun. If you're not having fun, what are you doing?
Speaking of having fun, one of the big concerns I hear from people who are playing with the idea of roleplay or fan fiction writing, especially in a franchise like 14 with such developed and beloved characters, people worry about being mocked or attacked for possibly portraying a character quote unquote wrong. Now, obviously, we've talked about this a bit already, but for people worrying about being attacked for not portraying a beloved character the way that others might want or think they should be portrayed, do you see a lot of that in the fanfic community? Like, do you see people getting attacked for things like that pretty often?
I mean, it definitely happens. And it's not like I don't like it. I don't agree with that angle at all. Which, yeah, we've already kind of touched on that. I just think, I just really wish that no one had to worry about that. And I would say to people, like, truly, if you are writing fan fiction, please write for yourself first and do what you enjoy. If you can truly get into that mindset, then if you do get a stray mean comment about somebody tearing down, just like, I don't know, accusing you of portraying a character incorrectly, it will not feel so bad because ultimately you're writing for your own joy. If you are trying to write for the approval of others, then you're more likely to feel really bad when you get a comment like that, if you do. And yeah, it can just really reinforce this perfectionistic mindset of needing everything to be correct, whatever correct means. It could really trip you up as you try to continue your writing journey. The more that you can get into the mindset of writing for yourself and following your joy in writing, the better. Truly.
I agree. I think that if you're met with a comment like that, the best thing you can do, I mean, frankly, I don't even respond to those. Yeah. I know you can hit reply, but honestly, I just wouldn't. Because if someone is that convinced that your fan fiction is bad, frankly, whatever you have to say to them in the first place isn't going to matter. I mean, I doubt it's going to change their mind.
Yeah.
But also, if you wrote a fan fiction or you wrote a chapter of a fan fiction and writing it made you happy, thinking about it made you happy, and then once you were done, if you read it and it made you happy and you're like, yes, this is what I want for these characters, then I would say that mean comment doesn't even matter anyway.
I agree.
Because if you're happy with what you made, then you're happy. And that should be the goal.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I would also add, like, we actually don't know where those people are coming from in their lives either. I don't know. People leave mean comments for all sorts of reasons, and sometimes it seems relevant, sometimes it's not. Like, sometimes people are jealous because you have more likes than they do. Like, I don't know. There's all sorts of reasons. But like, I just find it's best to try to cut that, like, that's social media mindset out of it as much as you can. Because, like, chasing likes, chasing engagement, stuff like that can really, really, really detract from your own joy. And I really care about you being happy. I really do.
As do I. Now, there is actually an incident this reminds me of that I'd love to get your opinion on.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
a friend of mine, he and I were writing separate fan fictions at the same time, both involving Y'shtola. And I'll never forget, we were discussing our fan fictions, and he said, my Y'shtola, and then used the phrase, your Y'shtola. And until then, like, it's like a light bulb went off. I had never actually considered, I guess, how do I put this? I hadn't thought about how different the same character could be and how differently we could both represent that character in our separate works. But when he used that phrasing of your Y'shtola and my Y'shtola, I was like, huh.
Huh. It is interesting. Yeah, and I think this is part of why I just say, like, I don't care if people, the debate about, like, being accurate, being correct, etc. Anytime that somebody takes something and expresses it from their own brain, they are by default making it uniquely their own, because they have a unique perspective of the world and of life, and they have their own interpretation of those characters. And really, like, if you think about it, in real life, when you're meeting people, when you're talking to people, like, your impression of me, Nobu, is going to be different than somebody else's impression of me. So, like, kind of like, you could be in the same room with me and at the same time and, like, see me, I don't know, saving a kitten or something, and then later somebody asks you both about, oh gosh, like, you saw Moen save the kitten, tell me the story of how Moen saved the kitten. It could be the same story with the same essential beats, but, like, you would naturally have a slightly different story and a slightly different take on Moen. Because it's coming from different brains. That's normal.
And I think that that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what kind of fan fiction do you enjoy writing? I'm going to put you in the hot seat a little bit. Do you have any, like, favorite scenarios or ships within Final Fantasy XIV that you like writing about?
I have never written a fanfic that contains an NPC.
Really?
Which is a real shame. I'm realizing as we're talking, I'm like, dang, you know what? I should do that.
Yeah.
I've only ever written about OCs. And these days it's mostly D&D stuff, less so Final Fantasy stuff. But yeah, it would be real fun for me to actually throw my hat in the ring with something like that. I think, like, what I used to do, like, a long, long time ago was, there was this term, I don't know if it still exists or if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but there was this term, like, blue book writing, which essentially is, like, writing from the POV of your character as they're going through the storyline of the MMO exactly, which is essentially what anyone who's writing, like, their perspective of the Warrior of Light going through is like. It's really fun to think about playing or, like, writing a fic that's, like, a Warrior of Light centric, interacting with the NPCs. I've read many of them, but not, of course, I haven't done it myself. And I think, gosh, there's, like, too many to ship, to be honest. I don't think I could choose one favorite, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
That is completely fine. I think that between part 1 of this interview and now here in part 2, I think that we've discussed quite a lot about fanfiction writing, both the good and the bad. And hopefully, dear listener, you have some ideas about fanfictions you might want to write, or you've decided that, you know what, I'm not going to let that one nasty comment from some random person get to me as much anymore. I know that if that's the case, both Moen and I will be delighted.
Yeah.
But I want to actually shift gears here because there is a big event that you and I need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's time we start talking about it. I have you on because I want to talk about something that I know you're excited for, and that is Final Fantasy XIV Write 2026.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 10th year of this event. That is incredible. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Now, FF14 Write is a 30-day Final Fantasy XIV fanfiction writing challenge, and I want you to tell our listener all about it. What is it, and how did it start?
Yeah. So it started 10 years ago. I was actually unemployed. There were some really difficult circumstances happening in my life at the time, and I was the saddest I'd ever been in my life. And to this date, have not been that sad. I needed some joy in my life, and roleplay brings me joy, but I needed something more, something to do that would be positive with my time. So I decided, there was this challenge that a friend of mine would run for our smaller group in World of Warcraft, which was a very similar format. And so I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, would you mind, my friend H, hey H, shout out, would you mind if I take your format and base like a challenge on that for Final Fantasy? And they said, yeah, that's great. Go ahead, do that. So I did, and I just put it on Tumblr. I was like, I'm going to do a 30-day writing challenge. It's just going to be like a new prompt every day that like will go live at noon every day, and you have 24 hours to write something for that prompt, and then another prompt will come, and it'll be like one prompt every day for 30 days. I was like, and I just tagged on there, and if any artists feel like they want to volunteer a prize, cool, like let me know. I'm open to that, basically. And a couple artists did. I think we had like maybe five artists who volunteered their time and their skill to do like a black and white sketch as a prize that first year. And the challenge period comes, and I'm thinking like, oh, it'd be really cool if I got like 10 people to do it. That would be really nice. It was more than 10. I don't remember how many exactly I got that first year, but I was just inundated, and I had like not expected that. So like I promised, I was going to do like a raffle at the end for anyone who just participated, so they would have a chance to win one of these prizes, these art prizes. So I was trying to track everything, and at the time it was on Tumblr. So I literally had, the way I tracked it is I opened up a Google Doc, and every couple of hours, every day, I would go on Tumblr, and I would, I had, the way that I had set it up that time, set it up is like the wrong word. It wasn't set up. I had told people, okay, just @mention me on Tumblr if you're participating, @mention me in your entry. And then if you see a like from me on your post, I've seen it and tracked it. So I had to go through like hundreds of these. And
what?
Yeah. Like here, let me actually bring up the page, because I didn't actually open my own page before this segment. But so I was not expecting a whole lot of participation, but that first year in those 30 days, I had like over 2,400 entries that I was manually putting into a Google Doc. And it overwhelmed me like immediately. I was like, what is happening? I thought maybe I'd get 10 people interested. So I was, in fact, it was so popular that I discovered the hard way that Tumblr started to like shadow hide at mentions. So I'd get messages from people saying, hey, like I wrote something, I tagged you, but I didn't see you like it. And I'm like, whoa, I can't find it. Like, where is it? And they'd send me a direct link and then I'd find it. It was starting to hide. Like I had too many mentions. It was starting to hide mentions from me. So that was, lesson learned. I think the next year is when I may have implemented a forum. I would have had to, like, I could not do that again. So I implemented a Google form and it got like 3,600 or so. And then just like grew incrementally every year. And actually, I'm looking at my website here. I don't have 2024's numbers in here. But so I feel like we're probably actually, as it stands now, not including 2025's numbers, probably like over 60,600 entries total that have been submitted via the Google form or that I've tracked in some way. And that's wild. Isn't that wild?
I'm literally just like sitting here with my jaw in my hands. Like, that is amazing and frankly wonderful. The fact this goes back to what we talked about with signs of a healthy fandom.
Right.
Is when you have people that are inspired to do art, no matter what form that art takes, whether it's like digital art or fan fiction writing or poetry or what have you, the fact that you have this many entries and this many people who enjoy the world of Final Fantasy XIV that much is amazing.
It really is. And I can't take credit for it. Like, all I did was start I just started something on accident, really. And then I kept it going because like the funnest thing for me to do and the way my brain works is to organize stuff and to organize people and bring people together. It's a pattern like everywhere in my life. So that's really what I do. But like really like the fan fiction community is just fantastic for Final Fantasy XIV. I'm every year so like just amazed and like I feel so warm and fuzzy just like seeing how the community comes together to write this. And of course it's not for everyone. The format can be difficult for people. The 24-hour format. And sure, yeah, it is difficult to like try to write something every day and like you've only got 24 hours. And then, your entry is no longer prize eligible for that day if you don't write it within the 24-hour window. But I actually think the 24-hour component is so critical because it's very intentional. What I'm trying to do with this challenge is, yes, bring people together to do something fun together every year, but also I'm really trying to get in there and like tackle that perfectionistic mindset that is so toxic to a creative process. And this mindset exists in any creative process. It really exists in processes in general. But for writing, like, yeah, I mean, like we talked about WIPs earlier. People don't understand that WIPs for writing like they do for art. And I think that's not good for creative process in writing. So like really like if you want like the easiest way to think about this challenge is like it's a WIP challenge basically. And I think I've joked like, like people have I've seen posts in former years, people being like, I want to do the Final Fantasy Write challenge, but I'm afraid because, I don't want to be cringe or like, I'm just nervous about like, things not being good or like, spelling errors and stuff. And I'm like, give me your spelling errors, give me your cringe, give me your bad ideas, like give it all to me. Yes, yes, yes. Come. Bring it.
Spreadsheet
Don't
needs
put in
it.
this form. Yes. It is valid. It is valid because you are trying something. You're trying something with your own brain. And I have to these days. I really have to say your own brain because AI writing is a thing. And if I catch anyone AI writing in my challenge, you're out. You're out. But it is really good for your brain to write. You know, we touched on that a little bit earlier. Writing especially fan fiction writing, because you're already choosing to write about a world that you love and characters that you love. Depending on subject matter that you're focusing on, it can just flood your brain with serotonin. It can be like beneficial for combating depression, anxiety, helps you improve your memory, helps you like start to think more clearly. And if at the same time you're targeting perfectionism in your creative process and trying to essentially like just destroy it by just coming every day to write something, even if you know it's going to be bad, that is so powerful. You're like actually starting to change the connections of the neurons in your brain and move into a different thought process in your creative process. And that's amazing. So like that's what I care about for this challenge. I don't need anyone to be perfect. And this isn't a contest, it's a challenge. So no one's work is being judged ever, at least not by me. And really it shouldn't be judged by anyone because like this is a WIP challenge. Works in progress. Come on. Yeah. So yeah, that's really what it's about. That's what I care about. There are art prizes every year. I have an astounding number of artists who have made it a habit to volunteer. I think it's for some people it's like, I don't know. They're just amazing. Like the artists are amazing too. Like so generous with their time and their energy. The way that the prizes work is if you do for every prompt that you write an entry for within its active 24-hour period, you basically get like one raffle ticket towards a chance to win a prize. And I have over 100 artists every year who volunteer. So there are a lot of prizes. There's a lot of potential there. That being said, this challenge is not about winning prizes. So like going back to writing for you and your own joy, even if you participate in this challenge, you should still be writing for you and for your own joy and not to win a prize, because it's just so good for your brain to write for you and your own joy versus like trying to get something. I don't know, it does something different to your creative process if you're really focused on a prize. So that's worth mentioning too. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's like largely the challenge and kind of how it works. Do you have any questions about the challenge itself?
I actually am sitting here with the biggest, goofiest grin on my face because you said something that really resonated with me, and I've not discussed on here since I think probably like the start of season 1 of this podcast. You talked about the perfectionist mindset when you're creating something.
Mm-hmm.
And I admit I don't have that so much in my role play or my fanfiction writing, but I definitely understand where you're coming from with that, because it reminded me of when I started this podcast. I had a conversation with Synodic Scribe about how I was constantly kicking myself after interviews going, if only I had asked that question better, or if only I had thought of this question before the interview instead of like 3 days later when I couldn't ask it. And I would just like sit there, and I would also try and edit and re-edit my podcast episodes. And to the point that like I was actually getting a little depressed about it.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever seemed how it was or how it should be in my head. And then Scribe, just bless him, he finally was like, you need to stop and you need to understand that in your head is this ideal, this concept that only ever exists in your head. Anyone who's consuming what you put out is only ever going to be aware of what you put out, not the things you didn't ask, not the thing that you thought about editing like 5 days later. They're never even going to know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep worrying about that, then what ends up happening is you never actually release anything because it's never good enough. You just need to sort of bite the bullet, throw it out there, and accept that no, it might not live up to your ideal or this like perfection in your head, but it also never has to.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that also can be applied to this. And I love that you're actively trying to help people understand that.
Yeah, and it can be difficult to communicate sometimes. Like, it is on the website. I kind of say those words, I think, every year. Like, no, this is about busting perfectionism in your creative process. But information, travels differently to different people. A lot of people still think it is some kind of contest. A lot of people are overly focused on prizes. It happens. It happens at any community challenge or event or whatever. If there's a prize involved, people will naturally sometimes be overly focused on the prize. It's worth repeating. I repeat it every year. I'll just repeat it always, 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 because I really care about stomping on perfectionism as much as possible, because it's not actually as helpful as we think it is.
I could not agree more. Now, there are two things in your facts page that did catch my attention, and I want to briefly talk about.
Sure.
First off, you say that no one has to do every prompt. You openly state that if a prompt doesn't speak to someone or they don't have time, just go ahead and skip it.
Yeah.
And that is great. I mean, I like that you present this challenge. You're like, you can do it, you cannot do it. Either way, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. I think that there's something about allowing rest in the process that is also important for combating perfectionism. So yeah, people can skip prompts. They can just write a couple. If you write 5 entries, then that means you've got 5 raffle tickets toward the possible chance to win a prize. I've seen people win a prize with just 1 entry. It happens every year. There's always one person at least. It's wild. Yeah, so lost my train of thought.
It's all good. The other thing that caught my attention that I feel we need to talk about is you say that writers can write in any language that they feel comfortable with. And that is amazing. Let's talk about that. Any language.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no judgment happening in this challenge. This is not a contest. It doesn't matter so much if I can understand the language or not, or if, again, you're writing for you, you're writing for your own process, you're writing to challenge the perfectionistic mindset in your own process. And you shouldn't be, like, if you're a native French speaker, a native Spanish speaker, you shouldn't be worrying about, we don't want to add the component of, is my English correct to that process, Please write in whatever language you are most comfortable writing in. Please do.
Now, I have to ask, so we've talked about how if you want to get a raffle ticket, it has to be within that 24 hours of the prompt. Do you have people that even, like, 2, 3, however many days later, will go back to a past prompt just because at that time they want to write that prompt?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I mentioned earlier that building rest into the process is important to combat perfectionism as well. So every Sunday is a free day or a rest day, basically. I call them makeup days or extra credit days, where either you can choose, like, if there is a prompt that you missed or skipped, and then suddenly you have inspiration, you can wait until Sundays, and then you can write for it and submit it, and the first one you submit will still count toward a raffle ticket, essentially. Or if you're all caught up, you can then choose, like, well, I can decide either to just not write something today and relax, or I can make up my own prompt and still write and get an extra credit toward a raffle ticket to possibly win a prize.
Oh, that's so cool. I like that.
Yeah.
We talk about prompts a lot. Can you give me a few examples of some of these prompts so that people have a better idea of what to expect? You don't have to include spoilers for this year's prompts.
Oh, I won't, yes.
But I would love to get some examples going of prompts that people might see in this writing challenge.
Yeah, so there is so most of the time what I'm doing when I'm thinking through what kind of prompts to choose, I really like to choose just single words as much as I can. And if I can pack as like single words that have multiple meanings, and there are a lot of those in the English language, so it's not too difficult to do. Those are my favorite ones because I like to see how people interpret the prompts. There's no right or wrong way to interpret a prompt. For instance, from 2024, prompt number 26 was zip. Simple word, super simple. Zip can mean a bunch of different things. It can be a zipper on a piece of clothing or gear or whatever. It can be, refer to how fast somebody is going. It can refer to a zip line. It could refer to a character named Zip, or maybe somebody had like a little dog in their past memory named Zip that they want to write about. Or maybe like the word zip makes them think of something else entirely. Maybe they think first they think, oh, zipper, and they're like, oh wait, shoelace. I want to choose a different thing to write about that is like still kind of something that holds two pieces of fabric together. I'm going to write about a shoelace. Like, that's fine. I really enjoy seeing like the different, like how varied people's thought processes and interpretations are. There's no right or wrong way. It's completely open. So those ones are really fun.
I love that you say zip line because you said zip and talked about writing, and I don't know what popped into anyone else's head, but I will tell you the first thing I thought of was Alize forcing Alphino on a zip line and him screaming his head off.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
I definitely see what you mean about just one word as a prompt is great. I mean, so many ways to take that.
I also like to choose words from the MSQ, like some of the words that are like look like bigger words, more complex words, or lesser known words that don't have as many multiple meanings, are words that a character has said in the MSQ somewhere. And I think most of the time people don't really pick up on that. It's just kind of like a little Easter egg that I know. But like the word deleterous was prompt number 28 in 2024. I believe that was a word that Yashtola said disdainfully about something at some point that like amused me so much. So I included it in the challenge. So like there's a bunch of like MSQ Easter egg words in here as well. And then of course, like once a week, I'll throw in an idiom. And these are like American English idioms, and it's kind of just to like mix things up a little bit, get out of like the single word prompt. And like Prompt 30, for example, in 2024 was 2 heads are better than 1, which was very MSQ related for Dawn Trail at the time. That was just when
Very
Dawn Trail
much so.
launched that year. So those are like the 3 most common types of prompts that I include, and kind of like the general thought process behind why I choose them.
And I want to confirm so that everyone, even if you haven't done this contest or you're curious to check it out, FFxivWrite takes place every September. This year, it starts September 1st over on Tumblr, right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, obviously, there are going to be links, plenty of links in the show notes. I'm also going to assume that at least some of the people listening, given the decade this has been going on, have probably participated before. But let's say for the listeners who are nervous, who haven't participated, who are on the fence, we've talked about all of the pros of fanfic writing, of creative writing, what it helps with your brain, and we've talked about how this is not something that needs to be or should be judged. But do you have any last-minute words of encouragement for people participating this year or people who are considering participating this year?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is to go easy on yourself. Like truly I don't have like my major expectation for entries that I see is that it's not written by AI. It comes from your brain. That's what I care about the most. And if you're kind of on the fence, if you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, whatever is keeping you back, I don't have enough time, but I really want to. There's no word limit or not limit. There's no word minimum. So like you could write just dialogue. You could write 2 lines of dialogue and submit it. That counts. You could write a haiku. That counts. You could write a limerick. That counts. Like you could write a long form story if you want to. That counts. You could write just a couple paragraphs that whatever you can get out for now that kind of relate to the prompt. That counts. And then the next entry you can continue that same thread. A lot of people do that actually, where they write one continuous story from entry to entry. They don't know what the prompt is going to be the next day, but the prompt kind of guides what the story becomes. That's a really interesting way to do it. You also don't have to publish anything publicly in order for it to be counted. There's a Google form. I accept Google Docs, or really any like online document that I can have like view privilege for. View only privilege. And there is like a master public spreadsheet that I publish, but there is the option to opt out of having your entry visible on that spreadsheet. So like truly, if you want to participate but you don't want anyone to see your writing right now, totally okay. You can do that. And it shouldn't show up anywhere if you opt out of having it show up places. So I try to make it really flexible for people and, be considerate of where everyone's comfort level is.
This is something about this contest. Well, I say contest. Ugh. You said contest earlier, so now...
I know. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Let me try that one again. Something about this challenge that you've made that just really grabs me is it can be in any form, it can be in any language. You just really want people to get out there and write. And that is beautiful. And that is also one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on to talk about this. One of the reasons that come September, I'm going to be supporting and promoting this on my social media. it's so flexible, it's so inclusive, and I want to say that I love that you bring this to the community.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I feel I feel like all I'm doing is just organizing, a spreadsheet. I mean, I guess it's definitely more than that, but it's funny, like when I think of the challenge, I don't really think of myself as like a big figure that's like doing a big thing. I just like I feel like I'm volunteering some time to organize this, and really it's like the community themselves are really taking this and running. And the community is what's making it what it is. So I feel privileged to be a part of it. I feel privileged that just to be a part of this community, like really, truly.
Now, before we go, I do want to ask one more thing about the prompts.
Yeah.
Do you make all of the prompts beforehand, or do you make them the day of?
Oh my God. I do make them beforehand. Actually, I usually will get started with Final Fantasy Write prep in June of every year. So that includes selecting the prompts. If there's some MSQs I need to catch up on, which is often the case now that I'm a mom, I'll play through those. I'll choose my prompts from the MSQ. I'll find like relevant prompts that kind of can combine with or like go along with the story, but also have multiple meanings and all that stuff. So take some time. I like to really consider the flow of the prompts, and then I just schedule them all in Tumblr. So come September, my workflow has fully shifted away from like getting the prompts and stuff in there to now working with the artists and starting to organize the artists. So while everybody's actively writing, I'm like talking to artists usually.
Do you participate yourself?
I do. I have every year. I've never won a prize. I do count myself toward the prizes because why not? It's all like random number generator is like there's like I actually don't even know how it works because one of my friends does the spreadsheet random number thing because they're way better at Excel than I am. But yeah, it just like spits out a bunch of random winners into a tab, and I've never been one of them, and I'm okay with that.
Well, Moen, this has been a treasure. I've loved having you on, talking about our similar passions for roleplay and fan fiction, and especially talking about September. I am very excited for it, and I can't wait to see what people come up with. Leading up to this interview, I had actually looked up prior fan fictions from previous years on Tumblr, and wow, the amount of creativity is what I'm trying to say, if I can talk right. Yeah, it is. That goes into these works. It just makes me genuinely excited to see what happens this year. And I'm sure that you feel the same.
I do. I also want to add that I'm really the last year, 2025, I was not able to run the challenge because I was in the thick of the newborn stage of having a baby and just could not do it. And I was so proud to see the community like carry on the challenge in like smaller pockets. So like little free companies, Discords doing their own thing, which I encouraged. Encourage people to do that. Some people went and started writing for previous years that they had missed or previous prompts they'd missed, and there were no prizes involved, nothing, no formalized tags or anything. But yeah, I mean, it signals like it seems like this is really an ingrained habit in the community now, which is just like amazing and strange for me to think about. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to you all who wrote anyway last year. Like, well done. That's amazing.
And to bring this all to a close and bring this conversation full circle, would you then say that people writing without any type of direction or incentive to do so is a sign of a healthy contest.
I see what you did there. I suppose so. I don't know. It's just like, I mean, there are a lot of different writing challenges that exist in the community. None of them are as consistent and long-standing as the one that I'm still running. I think it's just habit, like the community decided to get around this challenge kind of early on when I started it. It's grown every year. I mean, not every year. It actually did have a dip in the last couple of years, which is normal. But yeah, I think it's just habit. And what a great habit to build as a community,
Well, I can't speak for you, but given our conversations earlier and what my clock says, I'm sure that you are just as tired as I am. But before we go, I have to do what I do with all my guests, Moen. I feel like I've asked you a lot of questions. You've been nice enough to get on here and do this interview with me in spite of the hour we're doing this. So I think it's only fair that I give you time to ask me any 2 questions. So please have at.
Yeah. What kind of fan fiction are you working on right now or just generally that you have worked on? So I don't know if you're working on something now. What are you excited about in your fan fiction journey?
Well, so I've mentioned it quite a bit on this podcast that I have 2 big passions. One of them is Final Fantasy XIV, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The other is Japanese history.
Oh, yeah.
So I will openly admit that I do quite a bit of roleplay and fan fiction writing related to Japanese history.
It's so interesting that you frame it as fan fiction. What makes it fan fiction if it's about like his history?
Well, something that gets discussed a lot among historians is we can see the actions people took at certain times during certain events. But even if we have, say, a journal, which unfortunately is pretty rare for a lot of major historical figures, even though we would like to have more, it's really hard to pin down a historical figure's personality. I mean, you can see what they did or didn't do at certain times, and you can kind of get ideas of a personality based on those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that for a lot of historical figures, we really don't have a good way of knowing what their personalities were actually like. And that's where I feel like fan fiction really comes into writing about historical figures, and where I feel that historical fan fiction, when I say historical fan fiction, I feel like a lot of people think of the series like Fate Stay Night or Fate Grand Order, stuff that has characters based on historical figures. But at the same time, I feel like there is a lot of writing you can do that's pretty grounded in the real world, with the understanding that pretty much any personality you give a historical figure is likely just going to be made up in your head. I mean, it's because we don't have a way to know really what their personality was.
Oh, that is so fascinating. I've never thought of it that way. But you're so right. It is fan fiction. Huh.
I mean, every time you see a movie with a historical figure, every time you read a book with a historical setting and it has someone who actually lived, ultimately it's all fan fiction, because we weren't around 200, 400, 600 years ago. We have no real idea of what that person's personality or mannerisms or speech pattern was. And so it's all fan fiction.
So cool. As someone who writes fan fiction and role plays, How has fanfiction influenced your roleplay and vice versa?
I think that when it comes to role playing, there's, especially if you're role playing like in 14, you're looking at a screen, you're seeing what's going on between characters on the screen. And so, unfortunately, I feel like this tends to lead to a lack of written detail. Whereas with fan fiction writing, you don't really have as much of a visual medium, so you have to make sure to put in more detail about the environment, about what's going on, about people's actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually found that the more I wrote fan fiction, the more my role play, both in 14 proper and in Discord, actually ended up being more detailed.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I've noticed the same thing about my writing and my role playing.
Because it forces you to flesh things out more.
It
But
does.
now that you're used to fleshing things out in your fan fiction, when you're doing role play, which in a lot of cases tends to be like quicker, a bit less writing, when you're doing that, the writing you're doing now feels almost incomplete without that extra detail.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's true.
even when you're even when you have a visual medium, the more detail something has, the more depth something has.
Mm-hmm.
One example I really like is there are a lot of people who, when they're watching a baseball game, they'll actually turn off the audio from the announcers on the baseball game on TV, and they'll turn on the baseball game on the radio because the radio announcers put in more detail about what's going on.
Oh,
Because the on TV
interesting.
announcers assume that since you're watching it with them, they don't have to give you that detail.
Wow, that's really cool. I'm not really a sports person, so I didn't know, but this makes sense.
I mean, I've noticed that with pretty much any type of writing, more detail never hurts. Like the more detail that you can add into your writing, like the color of someone's clothes or the finer points of an action, or for instance, even something as simple as, hey, what are they smelling as they're going through a city? Because you're not just going, oh well, it's a really busy city, and you're kind of letting your reader fill in the detail that should be there in their head. If you add things like what your character feels on their skin because say they're in Limsa and it's really humid, or you're talking about, well, what things do they smell? Like what is the city of Gridania? What does that smell like? The more that you are drawing the reader into your world.
Yeah, yeah. So good. Mm-hmm. Relevant for roleplay too. Absolutely.
Well, like we've discussed, I mean, fan fiction, role play, it's pretty much all the same.
I would think so. But I'm not going to argue with someone if they disagree with me. I'll just say, okay.
As long as they keep on writing.
Exactly.
Well, I think that that is a great line to end this interview with. So we'll just say that everyone listening, if you're already doing roleplay or fan fiction writing, please keep writing. And if you're not, nothing is stopping you. So with that, I think that Moen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too.
Well, that's it. The final interview of Season 3 of Coffee and Carbuncles. I sincerely hope you all enjoyed it. For those that have tuned in this season, thank you so much for your support, for your encouragement, for your engagement. I really appreciate you guys being here. I also want to give a very big thank you to my guests this season. Without them, I wouldn't have an interview podcast. The planning for an episode of Coffee and Carbuncles is about a 2-week process with lots of DMs between my guests and myself before the show even happens. And I'm very thankful for them giving me their time, their effort, and just being so open to all of my questions. Following the end of this episode, the podcast will be on a break as I get ready for Season 4, though I don't plan to be quiet during that time. Between now and what will likely be a May or June release for Episode 1 of Season 4, I plan to gather up more guests and create several YouTube shorts of interesting points of conversation that have taken place throughout the past 3 seasons. I'm hoping this helps draw more attention to these episodes. Personally, I can't wait to see you all in May or June. I hope you're excited for Season 4, and I am very excited to see what everyone thinks of the guests that I have lined up so far. For now, though, let's go ahead and end this episode properly, shall we? Well, I hope that inspires you, my friend. As Moen has said, writing is something that helps free both the mind and the soul. It's a fantastic way to express yourself by putting some of the deepest wishes and your most creative impulses out into the world. So tell me, are you already a writer? Perhaps you've penned a few tales yourself already? Or perhaps our conversation has awoken something within? Perhaps an idea or a spark, perhaps? Well, if you do end up writing something after our conversation, I would certainly love to read it. Hearing about the creative process, what inspires it, what comes of it, is one of my favorite things. It is that raw passion of a person expressed through art that you can't help but look at in awe. So, by all means, feel free to share your creativity with me anytime. For now, though, the hour is growing late, and you seem to have finished your drink. So I believe this is the part where I say I'll see you next time, right here, with a warm drink and wonderful guests. So until next time, my friend, take care.